do a little React Andy content. Let's see the top 5 best teams in Genshin Impact. We'll do this real quick.
Over my top 5 teams in Genshin Impact before heading into Natlan. I'll be ranking these teams on AoE, single target, multi-wave, comfort, and my overall satisfaction with using them.
I think those are great criteria because there's never one best team. There's never one best team, chat. Because Genshin provides an experience that is holistic, right? There are moments where you have, single target big bosses where you need to shave down, right? There are different, stages where you have multi waves, right? Or Imaginarium Theater where you need even just a greater pool of units to be able to cover specific, criteria or specific events, right? So, I think 5 best teams is a good way to put it. And these are just 5 best teams in general, right? Not like ranked from 1 to 5. Let's see.
This will be a biased tier list. There's no getting around that. Number 5 is Navia Plunge. What Navia falls potentially short in sheet DPS, she makes up for in very consistent and easy to execute damage. If you're a longtime viewer of the channel, you know that we are mashers at heart here at Jello Impact. And although I do my best to learn all the...
So before we do anything, let's make predictions. Navia is top 5 DPS because of Plunge and because of sub DPS burst, right? Like burst Navia is pretty strong too. Plunge Navia is crazy good. Mono Hydro Nuvolette, a Hytham, either Quick Bloom or Spread Aggravate. You have Arlecchino Vaporize or Arlecchino Hyper, right? And then you have it's arguable to say like Cloren Spread Aggravate. You could say, who else could you say? If it's at C0, who would be Team 5, chat? I mean, hold on. Let me think. I mean, there's Hu Tao, Raiden Nationals. I might be forgetting a team here that just isn't coming to my brainage here. Maybe, no, not a Riesly team. Unfortunately, not a Linny Mono team. I think it's Cloren. I think it is Cloren. I think all the new units are just way too strong and way too comfy. So I'm thinking Navia, Nuvolette, Alhytham, Arlecchino, Cloren. All right, let's see what we have here.
Intricate mechanics of a character's kit. I love it when I can execute a character's combos and best synergies consistently, simply, and easily, and Navia gives me that. She has great single target performance. She has all right AoE performance, given the fact that Navia Plunge makes up for her AoE shortcoming quite a decent bit.
Not the order though. I don't care about the order.
Characters with a huge
like I said,
AoE,
I feel like order is very disingenuous. I feel like these are just top 5 teams.
Such a large AoE, and that her skill can hit more than one enemy, make her serviceable AoE and a menace in single target. The fact that there's no Viridess and Venera to keep up, no complicated rotations, flexible rotations due to Navia not...
Exactly. That's one of the things that Navia Plunge actually does really well. You don't need Viridess and Venera, so you can make Shenyu into just like that much just easier of a buffer, right? And then Chiori, does Chiori things, I guess.
Needing to stay on field for
I have these 4 units and they're pretty strong.
Buff up time, and
I just don't have the best weapons
to enemies,
for them, so it's a little bit harder to get off the exact damage that he's pulling off here. But yeah, do you think Chiori goes best with Navia? I think Chiori's great. Chiori's amazing. Double Geo Resonance as well, really good. Like Chiori's probably your go-to pick for the double Geo in this instance. Like Zhongli, waste of potential for damage, right? Because you already have the healing and sustain from Farina Shenyun. Like, you just don't need a Zhongli type of character. You just don't, right? Because you're jumping up and down, who's going to knock you up in the air, right? Knock you off of the air. Like, realistically, like 99.999% of enemies have no form of in-air interruption. So you're generally fine to to just run this team without fear of, you know, losing out on DPS potential, and you get so much out of all three of these characters. It's just insane.
Forever.
Can you replace Chiyo with Goro? Not necessarily, because Goro gives defense bonuses. But yes, he does give a Geo bonus, but then the potential is lost because you only have one other Geo character, which is Navia, right? Goro runs best with triple Geo, just flat out. You can run double Geo, but again, DPS loss because the buff isn't as effective.
As multi-wave phases become
Navi needs
on-field
Geo contracts to proc Crystallize for best performance.
Characters that can deal with multi-wave damage heavily
not necessarily
value, at least
because
for me.
then
She's
she
also
would
very
be
easy to play.
you know, she's able to proc the Crystallize through having more on-field time, right? When she plunges after her ult and she's infused, she deals Geo damage, right? So in this instance, you have the Chiori E skill proccing the Geo with the Saloon Solitaire. There we go, with the Saloon Solitaire, and you're having her proc it as well within a burst-esque state, right? So you're never not having Crystallize because of Chiori. So this is why this team is incredibly effective. Really, really good. All right, I'm gonna skip.
Coming in at number 4, it is Hyper Bloom. Hyper Bloom for all of Sumeru was my go-to team, especially in single target. Very similar to the Navia variant, Hyper Bloom has...
Is he splitting up Hyper Bloom and Quick Bloom? Probably, we'll see.
Incredibly strong single target performance and is also incredibly easy to play. It is probably the easiest team to play in the game. It has excellent single target performance, okay AoE performance.
Doubtful?
It's not
I don't know.
great,
We'll
but
see.
it is serviceable. Nahida's ability to tag multiple enemies with Dendro.
I like the way Jello makes his videos. It's so straightforward. I watch Jello all the time. You guys know this.
An AoE, which you might not have.
I'm a big Jello shill.
And the team just basically does a lot of damage.
I watch almost all of his videos, except for this one, apparently.
You're often able to burst them down quickly enough. On top of not
doing that would be such a waste of time. I don't know. Yeah, probably.
I do prefer double hydro, but I'll
I like double hydro simply for the fact that because if you have Nahida on field and then Kuki Shinobi as your hyper bloomer, it just works, right? And then if you let's say rotate into, you know, and I'll hide them quick bloom, right? It's probably okay to still have Nahida, but you can actually, if you have C1, C2, I'll hide them, then you really just don't need Nahida, and then you can go into the double hydro for, you know, just more flat out damage, and then still have Kuki Shinobu be that hyper bloomer for you. There are multiple ways to shake it out. Or even use Fischl, right? So I'll hide them being that premier on-field Dendro DPS character or driver of Hyper Bloom is really, really good. Although Nahida, just for comfortability, I think overall is a better unit value-wise, right? So
I'm guessing that Dendro characters.
All right. Moving on. You know what's a DLS? Welcome in. And Panda, great to have you back. Welcome in.
What I know of numbers as well as my personal.
All right, so we're 3 for 3 now, technically, I guess. So we got the Navia team, we got the Hyper Bloom team, and we got Arlecchino.
What the segment?
Arlecchino Vape is nutty. Bennett, Yelan, Kazuha is my go-to core. However, in some AoE scenarios, Xingqiu can be used instead of Yelan, both for a little of interruption resistance, but also some extra Hydra application to vape multiple enemies all at once. And in single target, replacing Kazuha for Sucrose has netted me more damage, as she gives both an EM buff as well as a Thrilling Tales buff to Arlecchino. My go-to is Yelan.
Oh, you're so right. I totally forgot. Wow. Okay, in that instance, Sucrose actually has so much value there, right? With the Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayer. So then what you do, right, is you Yelan ult, Bennett ult, Sucrose. You probably proc the Yelan arrow once to swirl, and then Sucrose E into potential Bennett funnel back into Arlecchino. So, you know, a few ways to shake that out if you want to optimize that, but the line is pretty simple and it's actually super effective, right? Just because Arlecchino is just that bitch. Plural. Next.
You guys are going to hate me for this. Florand Overload. Now, I'm biased.
Wow, didn't see this one coming. Wow, guys. Wow. So nuclear nuclear take here. Wow. Didn't see any of the Fontaine characters being some of the best DPSs they've released so far. Wow. Couldn't imagine that Clorinde makes this list as well.
Okay, Clorinde, she's my favorite character in the game. I love Clorinde. I'm a Clorinde simp, but this team does absolute truckloads of damage. It has very good AoE. People very much underestimate how good Clorinde's AoE is. It's very similar to Novelette's AoE. It's not as good, but it's very similar in that it shoots through the enemies in a line, and her dash has good AoE.
Navia?
In general, when most enemies are relatively close together, you can hit the enemies in an AoE. Now, I have C6 Chevreuse. You probably do not. But one day,
I don't even have a Chevreuse. Like, Chevreuse came on such a shitty banner that I couldn't pull for Chevreuse. I couldn't justify pulling on Chevreuse. This is why I don't run Clorinde Overload, but Clorinde Overload is extremely potent. Extremely potent, especially through the attack bonuses that you're getting. It's just absolutely just insane. This team is disgustingly good, right? You can still run Clorinde, you know, spread aggravate. That's the team I run, unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but like, you know, that's the team I'm kind of relegated to because I don't have Chevreuse. Chevreuse really drives this team to really, really big heights. You can use Bennett, although Chevreuse is just better because Clorinde just goes in, out, up, down, left, right. Like Bennett, you're stuck in a circle. Not the most realistic, you know, buff. And also Chevreuse and an Overload will increase the Overload damage, so that just is better.
Can get her. If you don't have C6 Chevreuse, I have tested Chevreuse without C6. This team probably drops to probably number 5 for me.
Can't you just go Clorinde, Benny, Shincho, Kazuha? Yes, but the DPS, there's a DPS loss without having characters like Chevreuse and Fischl. It's just a DPS loss. It's just how it is.
Arlecchino moves up, it drops probably below the other ones. So
and then you need Toma to be able to apply fire consistently.
You do notice if you do have a 5-star weapon on Fischl, right? If you do have Clorinde's 5-star weapon, this team, like I've tested all of these teams with both 5-star and 4-star weapons, and for all of them you do notice the 5-star 4-star difference. This team, you definitely do notice it. Clorinde's signature is very big for her. If you have Mist Splitter, that's good too. Fischl definitely wants a 5-star weapon. Ideally, she's doing a lot of damage on this team. The base attack really matters.
Toma Power Application isn't the best meta-wise. No, it's not. But in this case,
still very
it is.
AOE,
it doesn't matter if it's meta.
I would
it's
say
effective,
it's better AOE
right?
than the Arlecchino.
It doesn't matter if it's meta because it works for this team, right? Like, do you guys remember when I made the video about Clorinde and Chi-Chi? Obviously, that's not meta, but it works extremely well when you pair Clorinde with the what is it, the Skyward, right? Welcome. With the Skyward Blade. Also, Orange, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome in, right? So you're pairing Clorinde with the Skyward for the physical bonuses, and then you pair Chi-Chi with Fischl or whatever, yada yada yada, to be able to proc. Right? To be able to proc Superconduct for the physical and the Electro Shred bonuses. It's just so effective. Also, Victoria, great to meet you. Hello, welcome in. Thank you so much for the follow as well. So, it doesn't matter if it's meta, right? Meta just means the most effective way to go about stuff. It doesn't in meta, it's twofold, right? There's 2 layers to it. One, how effective the team is, and then secondly, how effective the team is against the enemies that are presented, right? If all the enemies have Geo Shields, what's meta? Zhongli, Navia, Ito, Goro. If they're Pyro Shield or they're the Pyrolectors, Hydro's meta, right? Novelette, Tartaglia, Ayato, Yelan Shinjo, right? So meta is a term that just is thrown around a lot in the community that people just don't necessarily understand the nuance of. It's not to say that you guys are so dumb for saying meta, but understanding the context will help you to develop your thought process on gauging and evaluating these types of videos, right?
Team.
Next.
I would be considered a hack to not make this my number 1 team. And of course, Novelette Hyper Carry is...
It's just the best. It is simply just the best.
Judgment of the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinale. We now turn to the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinale.
Yeah, it's just the best. I use Shin Yun here for comfortability's sake. But Kazuha obviously just increases your damage potential like 4-fold, right? Gives you the EM bonuses, or not EM bonuses, excuse me. Gives you the elemental damage bonus through his EM, right? Does a lot of swirls, right? Does a lot for your Hydra units. VV shreds everything that you would want from a buffer unit. Kazuha brings to the table, right? So that's good. Zhongli at C0 for Novelette is viable, right? But you don't even need Zhongli sometimes, right? If you have C1 plus. So do I think these 5 teams are the 5 best teams in the game? Yes. Pure and simple. Why? Because they're the latest and best teams to come out of the game. And it's not to say that it's always going to be that way. However, if the game wants to progress and actually grow as a game, they're going to have a little bit of power creep. It's just how it is, because you want your newer units to be better than the previous units. And that's just plain and simple. That's just how it is. And then subsequently, that results in power creep. But if you want people to pull on your gacha game, you got to create better units. You got to create units that are more fun to play. You got to create units that are more unique. To wrap up this video, can't argue with these teams. Especially if you're considering them at budget. Not to say F2P, but at budget, right? Because Novelette, Farina, Kazuha, Zhongli, not everybody has the luxury of getting all 4 units. And these are 5-star units, right? So it's understandable, right? Novelette, you could have C1. Farina, you could have C2. Kazuha, C2. Zhongli, C1 plus, right? Like, so again, at budget, I'll be honest. Yeah, he's spot on. I think these teams are probably the best teams. Yeah. Novelette is just that strong out the box. Farina, just that potent. Kazuha, that potent out the box, right? You know, you could say that Arlecchino actually outperforms Novelette, but that's a higher potential, right? That's a higher investment. That means weapon. That means, you know, C1. That means other characters, you know, Yelan, maybe C1 plus, right? Yelan with weapon, right? So there's a little bit of nuance there, but other than that, I think for the criteria of C0 budget options, I think, you know, this is a very respectable list. Yeah, agreed. I wish we mentioned Alhaitham and Quick Bloom, but I guess just adding Hyper Bloom in general just made for a more holistic list. So that's just my opinion. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, because I think Jello hit it spot on, pretty much. Not too much to argue about, really. You know, and just purely from a performance standpoint, there's just not too much to argue, because it's just pretty objective. It's just pretty objective. There's a lot of, you know, there's a lot that has to do with like comfortability of play too, right? Novelette, you just literally hold down one button and spin around incessantly, right? So by which, you know, that's the most comfortable to play, and it outputs some of the highest DPS in the game. It's just no brainer. So. All right. Chillin'.